Coming in at number 10, we have the bloodthirsty vampire Wolverine. In an alternate universe where vampires have launched an all-out assault on the United States, most of the X-Men are bidden and mind-controlled by the Lord of the Vampires, Dracula. Unfortunately for Dracula, however, Wolverine's healing ability allows him to regain his own mental control despite becoming a vampire, and thus is able to overthrow Dracula and become leader of the vampires. Consumed by a bloodlust that amplifies his already pretty frightening rage, Wolverine and his vampire army are able to wipe out most other superpowered life on the planet, only finally being defeated by the combined forces of Doctor Strange and the Punisher as a vampire hunting combination. Coming in at number 9, we have the evil Iceman hailing from the Age of Apocalypse universe. In a world where Apocalypse has taken over mutant kind and only Magneto and a few X-Men are capable of fighting back, the usually optimistic Bobby Drake was forged into a heartless warrior, giving him much stronger control of his ice powers than other depictions of Iceman, and becoming a living streak of ice that can travel instantaneously through water. This version of Iceman would eventually betray his teammates and ally himself with Dark Beast, and was only eventually able to be defeated by having his head shoved inside of a furnace. Which I guess is one way to kill an ice-based villain, but geez, that's a little bit overkill. Coming in at number 8, we have the brainwashed Wolverine of Earth 14850. At one point in the regular Marvel Universe, Wolverine was captured and brainwashed by Hydra in order to assassinate the Avengers, but luckily was able to be deprogrammed before he did any real damage. On this alternate Earth, however, the deprogramming never took place, and Wolverine's killing spree of superpowered heroes was able to last for months. Armed with all of his incredible abilities, absolutely no remorse, and the addition of Hydra-developed teleporting technology that nullified even Wolverine's usual weaknesses, and this was a horrifying enemy that even the Avengers couldn't handle. Coming in at number 7, we have Basilisk, the twisted, mask-wearing variant of Cyclops. On an alternate world where anti-mutant sentiment is somehow even higher than the regular Marvel Universe, Scott Summers' backstory is made even more tragic. Killing 7 people, including his own parents when his powers first manifest, Cyclops is locked away in the prison Alcatraz and forced to wear a mask made of ruby quartz to control his laser vision. The evil governor of the prison even goes so far as to mutilate Cyclops and remove his eyelids, making the twisted basilisk mask the only method Scott has to control his deadly abilities, a favor that Cyclops would repay by killing the governor and launching a prison break that would eventually lead him back to this universe's X-Men. Coming in at number 6, we're taking a bit of a break from the comics with the Wolverine symbiote from the video game Spider-Man: Web of Shadows. In this game's story, Wolverine has traveled to New York City to deal with a growing symbiote infestation, and even briefly fights Spider-Man when he believes the wall crawler is actually Venom. Unfortunately for Wolverine, he finds himself overwhelmed by actual symbiotes on top of a church and attacks Spider-Man again as the Wolverine symbiote. With all of his usual healing abilities on top of all the usual symbiote enhancements, this version of Wolverine might just be the scariest he's ever been. Coming in at number 5, we have the Ultimate Universe version of Jamie Madrox, aka Multiple Man. Multiple Man's powers have always been a bit overwhelming, with the ability to seemingly create an unlimited amount of duplicates of himself as long as they're generated one at a time. In the Ultimate Universe, however, this power was pushed beyond its limits when Jamie allied himself with the Brotherhood of Mutants, and created tens of thousands of bomb-wielding versions of himself with no regard for his own life. While the Ultimatum event featured many shocking moments, few are as existentially disturbing as literal thousands of clones strapping explosives to themselves just to wipe out several superhero bases. Coming in at number 4, we have the possessed Professor X from Earth 6141. During the event known as M-Day, when Scarlet Witch wiped out most of mutant kind, the extremely powerful telepath known as the Shadow King was able to escape the loss of his powers by transferring his mind through the multiverse to the alternate world of Earth 6141, where he was able to successfully possess the mind of this world's Charles Xavier before the X-Men were even formed. Combining both of their telepathic might, this version of Xavier turned all of his students into perfect killing machines, and placed them firmly under his psychic control, getting them to kill any superheroes who tried to interfere in the Shadow King's schemes. While eventually defeated by the team known as New Excalibur, this group of Shadow X-Men left their world shaking in terror. Coming in at number 3, we have the vampire variant of Storm, aka BLOODSTORM. In an alternate reality where Storm was bitten by Dracula before discovering the X-Men, Storm came to Charles Xavier for help with her condition. Unfortunately, her bloodlust was too strong and she wound up feasting on both the Professor and Beast. Horrified at what she'd done, this version of Storm would eventually try and redeem herself after she found herself as part of an invasion force attacking the main Marvel universe. While she eventually bonded and made amends with the Beast of this dimension, her combination of weather controlling and vampire powers made BLOODSTORM one of the more powerful X-Men variants that the regular X-Men have ever had to face. Coming in at number 2, we have one of the most powerful enemies the X-Men have ever seen with Brother Mutant. On Earth 127, a male variant of the Scarlet Witch, known as the Scarlet Warlock, attempted to cast a spell that would transfer Wolverine's adamantium skeleton to Magneto, thus giving Magneto an incredible power boost given his magnetic abilities. However, something with the spell went wrong, and the Scarlet Warlock, Wolverine, Magneto, Quicksilver, and the villain Mesmero were all merged into a singular being known as Brother Mutant. With all 5 of these mutants' powers combined into one villainous figure, Brother Mutant was such a powerful threat that a multiversal team of Wolverines had to be assembled specifically to stop him, just to ensure that all of that power wasn't unleashed on the rest of the Marvel multiverse. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Magneto from the Ultimate Universe. Unlike a lot of the other entries on this list, this Magneto variant doesn't have any additional powers or physical mutations to make him even more intimidating, but rather is terrifying just because of his sheer willpower. This version of Magneto is much more cynical and dark than the complex figure of the regular Marvel universe, and when he believed his children had been killed by Dr. Doom, Ultimate Magneto was furious enough to begin a global genocide. Switching the polarity of Earth's poles with his magnetic powers and beginning the incredibly controversial event known as Ultimatum, this version of Magneto caused the deaths of millions of people and dozens of beloved superheroes, and was only finally able to be stopped when Cyclops put him out of his misery with a laser blast to the head.
Number 10. Wither. Kevin Ford, or better known as Wither, was a former student of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. He was a mutant with the power of organic decay, which means basically when he touched any form of organic matter, it would break down the binding forces between the molecules and cause whatever he's touching to wither away. I get his name now. He wasn't really all that great at controlling it though. When he first arrived at the school, he was a bit of a loner, but he eventually made some friends. He was especially close with Laurie Collins, also known as Wallflower. Years later, during the House of M storyline, he touched Laurie's arm and accidentally ended up crippling her. He then decided to run away and was recruited by Selene to fight against the X-Men. Number 9. Bishop. Lucas Bishop, or better known as just Bishop, has a very, very interesting story. You see, his mission was to travel back and to find a traitor in the X-Men and stop this terrible future that he was living in. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, not exactly. After Scarlet Witch wiped out a ton of the mutant population, Hope Summers appeared, and everyone saw her as some sort of mutant messiah. Bishop then realizes that she is partially responsible for the terrible future that he lived in and will stop at nothing to kill her. He even ends up betraying the X-Men, which in turn makes him realize that he is the traitor that he was looking for all along. And instead of killing Hope, he ends up killing Cable. And now, in the future, he is known as a villain. That's pretty crazy. And really messed up. Number 8, Colossus. Colossus is generally seen as a really nice guy. I mean, look how he's portrayed in the Deadpool films. People just absolutely love him. But unfortunately, he has turned to the dark side. He ended up suffering a brain injury, and then shortly after, he lost his sister to something known as the Legacy Virus, which took the lives of a lot of mutants. Because of this, he ends up siding with Magneto for a little while and goes against the X-Men. But he does eventually return to the side of good. But he was evil, which is why he is on this list. Number 7, Gambit. Gambit technically started out as a villain. He was a con man and thief, but he did, eventually become a hero. He's one of the most famous and most popular, of the X-Men. He has been a part of multiple events and stories where he saved the world. But at one point, he did go back to being evil. Not entirely his fault, though. It was kind of, for Apocalypse, which you'll be hearing about more as this list goes on. He became one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen and tried to kill his friends. He didn't stay that way forever, and he rejoined the team later on and has continued to be a crucial part of the team going forward. Number 6, Iceman. In the Age of Apocalypse universe, Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, is not the one we know and love. In the original universe, he's, a nice guy that you could just rely on. He's a crucial part of the X-Men and has saved hundreds of people. But that's not the case in the Apocalypse timeline. This Bobby ends up turning against his team, to the point where he even reveals the location of the X-Men's super secret underwater base to Wolverine, who was also working for Apocalypse at the time. Not cool, Bobby. Not cool. Although he didn't really get away with it. Later on, he ended up being killed by Nightcrawler. So, Number 5, Namor. Namor has a very interesting relationship with people who live on land. And by interesting, I mean it's pretty rocky. He usually is not a fan of them, although he has worked with them, before, and even allowed the X-Men to operate in the ocean. But that hasn't always been the case. He has consistently let his hatred of the land cloud his judgment, to the point where he has had multiple fights with not only just the X-Men, but the Avengers. He also has a lot of beef with Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. The two have had so many fights that I have lost count. Number 4, Cyclops. Usually Scott Summers is a stand-up guy, known as one of the most famous leaders of the X-Men. And when you think of him, evil is not really a word that would come to mind. But it has happened to Scott before. It started during the Schism storyline, where his leadership skills were questioned. He began sending out young mutants on assassination missions, which is kind of weird. And then his leadership, was obviously questioned, leading to a massive brawl with none other than Wolverine. This whole arc led into the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline. In Avengers vs. X-Men, he ended up becoming possessed by the Phoenix Force and he killed Charles Xavier. Of course, that wasn't entirely his fault, since, he couldn't really control it. Number 3, Angel. Warren Worthington III is a mutant, with, you guessed it, wings. He's a proud member of the X-Men, but ended up becoming their enemy, Archangel. He becomes one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. He did eventually break free from Apocalypse, but the whole encounter really just changed him going forward. Warren was never really the same after that. He has consistently wavered between good and evil, sometimes going back and referring to himself as Angel, and then other times becoming bad and becoming Archangel. Number 2, Wolverine. Wolverine becoming bad isn't really a new thing. I mean, there have been multiple instances in the comics where Wolverine has become evil. During the Age of Apocalypse storyline, where he was one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen, or the time where his body was taken over by a demon and he became Hellverine and caused all sorts of mayhem, or there's even the time where he became a vampire. He also even murdered a kid in the Ultimate Universe. It's just, the list goes on and on. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from how iconic Logan is. He's just this amazing hero and will always stay that way, regardless, if he turns evil sometimes. Number 1, Jean Grey. This is probably one of, if not the most famous story in X-Men history, the Dark Phoenix Saga. Fans adore it. It was this massive, action-packed, heartbreaking event. I mean, it's so popular that they've even tried to make it into 2 movies. Fans weren't really crazy about them, but the fact that it was adapted twice really shows you how popular it is. Jean Grey becomes Dark Phoenix after harnessing the power of the Phoenix Force, one of the most powerful things in the whole Marvel Universe. This tragic tale also does not have a happy ending. I mean, on the one hand, Jean managed to become herself again, but in order for her to save everyone, she had to die, which had massive ramifications on the rest of the team going forward.
At number 10, Emma Frost. Now, when you see Emma Frost, it's not like you're just gonna be like, oh, she's so scary. But Her looks aren't what make her scary, it's everything else. Emma is a powerful telepath who can also turn her skin into a nearly indestructible diamond material. Also, she is known to play both sides. Not only has she been an enemy of the X-Men, but she has also been part of the team. So she's not only powerful, but she's smart and sneaky. Number 9. Omega Red. Arkady Rozovich was a mutant with the ability to heal and release pheromones that would eventually kill any organic life they came in contact with. His powers made him a prime candidate for essentially the Russian version of the Weapon X program. Because of this experiment, he ended up becoming super enhanced. He also has metal tentacles that can retract and he can control them at will. Now, this guy was a terrible person even before he became one of the scariest X-Men villains. He kidnapped and killed numerous girls over the years, so the fact that he became that enhanced after all that is a very, very scary thought. Number 8. Sabretooth. Victor Creed, also known as the villainous Sabretooth. Oh man, every time I hear Sabretooth or just his name Victor, all I could think of is this Hugh Jackman yelling out like Victor whenever he's angry. Oh man, I miss Hugh Jackman. He was so good as Wolverine. Okay, but back to Sabretooth. He is a mutant who was enhanced by the Weapon X program, one of his main abilities being his healing factor. He also has enhanced hearing, sight, taste, smell, and he can see in the dark. He also has enhanced strength and claws instead of fingernails, and super sharp fangs. Plus, his bones are now laced with adamantium, so it makes him even creepier. Number 7. Dark Beast. Dark Beast is an evil version of, normal Beast, aka Hank McCoy, from the Age of Apocalypse reality. In this timeline, the X-Men were never formed because Charles Xavier died before that could happen. And in this timeline, Hank doesn't have the support and guidance of Professor X and kind of goes a bit crazy with his experiments because he is working for Apocalypse. He basically experiments and tortures mutants in this timeline, which he kind of enjoys. And some of his victims included Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Number 6. Mystique. Mystique, also known as Raven, is one of the most dangerous mutants around. Why? Well, because she can shapeshift into anyone or anything. And not only will her looks change, but she can perfectly match their voice and outfit. She has caused the X-Men so much trouble over the years. One thing to note is that she can't actually take the powers of the person she transforms into. If she could do that, she would be the most powerful mutant of all time. On top of being able to change her appearance, she is a very skilled fighter and assassin. Number 5. Juggernaut. Kane Marco, also known as the Juggernaut. Now, this guy, you don't want to mess with. Also, in the main universe, he's not a mutant. He's just the stepbrother of Professor X and is powered by the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak. But in the Ultimate Universe, he is a mutant, so that's why he's on the list. So, in that universe, he has super strength, durability, speed, and stamina, and when he starts running, almost nothing can stop him. Also, fun fact, in the Ultimate Universe, he was later enhanced by the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which made him even stronger. It just wasn't his primary source of power here. Number 4. Mr. Sinister. While he's technically not a full mutant, he also kind of is. When he was transformed into Mr. Sinister by Apocalypse, he technically mutated and acquired abilities, so yeah, he had to be on the list. After being enhanced, he now can shapeshift, has accelerated healing, super strength, speed, durability, and telepathy, and he just looks super creepy. Number 3. Dark Phoenix. Coming from one of the most popular X-Men stories ever written, there's a reason that they have attempted to adapt it twice, is Dark Phoenix, who we also know as Jean Grey. While the X-Men were on a mission, they were trying to save a crew in space that were trapped in a shuttle. In order for them not to die of radiation, someone had to come aboard the ship and drive it back. That person turned out to be Jean. She could instantly learn how to fly the shuttle, but also she was able to shield herself from all that radiation. Eventually, the radiation started to kill her, and she cried out for help, and the Phoenix Force answered. It saved Jean, but while her actual body was healing, it created its own copy of Jean. She eventually went on to become evil, and with the Phoenix Force, she is insanely powerful. She can absorb and dish out endless amounts of energy, can travel through space completely unharmed, and has maxed out psychic abilities. Number 2. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is believed to be one of the very first mutants. He was born in Egypt around 3000 BC. He was born with gray skin, blue lips, and natural markings on his body. He believes that only the strong should be able to live, regardless of, if they're mutants or just a superpowered being. He's basically immortal, has super strength, teleportation, telekinesis, telepathy, self-molecular manipulation, ooh, that's a mouthful, which essentially means he can alter his own body almost any way he wants. He could also just grow as big as he wants, or he can shrink to be the smallest thing in the world. He can even shoot energy and absorb massive amounts of energy. He's just scary and powerful. Number 1, Magneto. Okay, so he may not be the scariest looking mutant, but trust me when I say this, Magneto is the scariest mutant villain around. Not only does he have the ability to control all forms of metal, making him one of the most powerful mutants, but he can also control people. And no, he doesn't have an actual mutant ability to control people. What I mean is there is a reason so many mutants follow and trust him. He has this natural quality that allows him to manipulate and lead people. He believes what he is doing is right, and because of that, so do his followers. They will do anything for him. You know, he may be evil, but he doesn't come across that way. He truly makes people believe that anyone who doesn't see it his way is the enemy. Magneto just doesn't see himself as a villain, and neither do his followers. And because of that, he is the scariest mutant of all.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Hope Summers. Making her first debut in X-Men Volume 2, Issue 205, Hope Summers is the first mutant born post-M-Day. She was born in Alaska and Cerebro just went off the charts. It went nuts. So the Purifiers immediately attacked. They were tipped off by a time-traveling sentinel, Nimrod. So Cable came in at the same time and eventually saved her, but as for everybody else in that town, well, they didn't get so lucky. Cable saw the child as a messiah, the savior for mutants and humankind, but Bishop and the Purifiers were on a different page. They believed she would become a full-on supervillain. They thought the death toll would be 1 million after just 6 minutes. That's like, you can make rice in 6 minutes and then 1 million people are dead. That's bad news. That's bad news. And then after that, it would obviously only get worse, according to Bishop and his future knowledge. So the future clock was ticking. Hope learned how to fight by studying Cable, and the strain 88 virus that recharged Rogue's power would kill anybody with just one touch. It was so much that Rogue fell into a coma. But when Hope was taken from Mystique, she was pressed against Rogue's face, and not only did she survive, but she also healed Rogue at the same time. Just like Jean Grey, Hope too was attracting the Phoenix Force, so when the Avengers came along offering to protect the child later on, that just led into Avengers vs. X-Men. So yeah, she's a little important, we can say that. Number 9, Brother Nathan. Brother, here we go. Making his first debut in Cable and Deadpool issue 16, Nathan Summers from Earth 58161 found peace. We'd love to see it. Now at this point, humans were done relying on television and all that crap. Instead, they used their imagination to explore and expand the humankind. How lovely is that? Wonderful. What a future. So our 616 Deadpool came along looking for the missing Cable, and that's where he ended up. He ended up here. Cable, or in this time, Brother Nathan that is, found Wade telekinetically and gave him the rundown. This pitch, this new peaceful environment that he created wasn't actually boring like Wade believed. And only 3 minutes later, Wade was gone. He got out of there. He couldn't do it. Only Cannonball and Siren from this Earth followed him back through dimensions, so he ended up getting in trouble by this quick visit. Brother Nathan is cool though. He's a cool dude. There's a ban on weapons in this timeline, but Nathan had this cool looking spear with a ceremonial blue tassel under the blade. It wasn't for combat, but more for keepsake purposes. And look at him. He looks like a nice dude. He kind of looks like the Lord, dare I say. Also, this world is beautiful. It feels like No Man's Sky meets Wakanda. That's a nice place to be. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be so great. It's so helpful here at the channel. You guys are the best. Now let's get right back into this awesome part 3. Let's do it. Number 8, White Sword. Among the many mutants residing on Okara, one was known simply as White Sword, or White Sword of the Ivory Spire, which rolls off the tongue a little nicer. He made his first appearance in X-Men Volume 5, Issue 12 during the 10 of Swords storyline. The White Sword and his army of 100 champions were sent to Ament. They battled and bought the mutants some time. So when the dust was settled, White Sword vanished. He never returned with his people again, and after the mutants were trapped in Ament, they saw all these demons who had been crucified, so they knew that the White Sword was there, just kicking ass all along. Now he was an ally to the mutants of Okara, but after that, many years of endless war and resurrection, he eventually started to lose his mind, as one would. He would start attacking his friends as well as enemies. He just couldn't see the difference. I mean, as if living 1,000 years wasn't bad enough, imagine having to spend it constantly fighting for your life. But he is quite good at fighting. He's a master at sword combat, and if he does decide to heal you after a battle, you'll then be enlisted to his army by default. Nice. Number 7, Zorn. Jean Grey, this time from Earth 13729. This Jean first appeared in X-Men Battle of the Atom issue 1. Zorn, well rather Professor Zorn that is, was a teacher at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, and this is the past Jean grown up, right? That's important to say. Battle of the Atom was a crossover event where the future X-Men travel back to the original 5. But they weren't exactly X-Men though, they were future Brotherhood of Mutant members, led by Charles Xavier II and Reyes, those two villain kids. So Jean Grey went by Zorn and rocked the skull helmet. It was a vibe, it was a pretty good look. The team wanted to force the OG back to the past and prevent their future. Now this version of Jean didn't have the Phoenix Force attached to her, but she was still able to take on Emma Frost. She was quite powerful. The dialogue alone is pretty great here. Jean is asking Jean what happens in the future that makes her such a what a way to put it, right to the punch. Now this version of Jean can't go more than a few minutes without Zorn's containment helmet, and she has similar powers as our other Jean that we know, only they grow in strength this time around. It's trouble. Number 6, James Braddock Jr. First appearing in Captain Britain issue 9, Jamie Braddock Jr., the oldest son of course from Dr. James and Lady Elizabeth Braddock, and when I say oldest, he's 10 years older than his siblings, the twins Betsy and Brian Braddock. Now Jamie can manipulate reality, but it never started that way. He was brilliant when it came to finances, and if that's too by the books for you and not cool enough, he was also a pro race car driver. Nice. He found out about his brother's secret identity, and then he helped out here and there as a supporting character to his comic run. But Jamie started to get behind on bills, so he resorted to crime. First starting with minor crimes, and then as these debts grew, he had to get really dark and grimy with his actions. Eventually Dr. Crocodile kidnapped him, told Brian about his brother's crime work, and his brother kind of just let him go, right? Doc Croc was evil. After these experiments, Jamie was convinced that this reality that he lives in is actually just a dream, and his mind was just breaking. It was sad stuff. This just happened to be the tipping point for Jamie to meet his mutant power, which also happened to be the ability to warp and restructure reality in his immediate vicinity. Terrible, powerful combo right there. Troublesome. He views the world as invisible strings that he plucks away at. It's like Interstellar style. Murph. Number 5, Archangel. Warren's wings are pretty amazing as is, but during the X-Force storyline, he got the upgrade of a lifetime. He got techno-organic wings by Apocalypse after he became the Horseman of Death. The old HOD. Sometimes they work. I thought he was powerful before, but this is just another level. His feathers were much stronger this time around as the Horseman, and he could fire them off like bullets. They could pierce right through steel, or he could use the wings to smash and fly through anything. Either or. The techno-organic wings regrew afterwards for a second time, along with the new blue skin tone to match Apocalypse. Now this form of Angel is hard to keep away. He often struggles to keep his heroic side in control. If Apocalypse made me a Horseman of Death and I got all that extra power, I'd be pretty annoyed having it taken away every now and then. I get it. Number 4, Nathaniel Gray. This mutant is from an alternate reality, like some of our other ones that we talk about. He styles himself as a mutant shaman, loaded with precognition, telepathy, telekinesis. Who is he? Let's talk about him. Coming from Earth 295, artificially created from Sinister and the High Lord Apocalypse, Nate Gray is made of genetic materials from Cyclops and Jean Grey. He was created to be the ultimate telepath, and I think it kind of worked. He was made as a power bid to go against Apocalypse as well, and he's classified as an Omega level mutant, the most powerful psionic in any reality. Not just that one, and he's near omnipotent. So he's basically a living god. Neat. Just a fraction of power was enough to overload Omega and Mimic in Dark X-Men issue 2. Sentry and Nate Gray both fought Galactus in Dark X-Men issue 3, so it's fair to throw him on this list, I'd say. Number 3, Selene. AKA Black Priestess, Selene made her first debut in New Mutants issue 9. She was born 17,000 years ago, give or take, right after the Oceans, ate Atlantis. She was an enemy of the Sorcerer Kulan Gath in Uncanny X-Men 191, and her powers are pretty spectacular, and also terrifying. She can drain the life force out of you in order to live longer. All she has to do is come into physical contact, and you're toast, mister. No fist bumping Selene in this house. Her tribe realized she was powerful right from the get-go, way back when humankind was just starting to evolve, really. So her tribe's elders all sacrificed their lives to make her more powerful and everlasting. That's a solid tribe, ride or die right there. They obviously chose die, but still, they're riding a little bit. The character Selene from the Underworld series, funny enough, was actually based off of this Selene from the comics, and I can totally see Kate Beckinsale now every time I see her, and so will you. Number 2, Apocalypse. Making his first steps in Marvel graphic novel issue 17, he was born nearly 5,000 years ago at the edge of the Valley of the Kings in ancient Egypt. shift. He was born with gray skin and had blue lines all over his face. He looked different, so he was abandoned by his tribe. He was raised with the nomads with the idea that only the strong survive. So Apocalypse was killed by agents of Ozymandias, but was later revived thanks to his mutant abilities. Where to even begin with this Omega level mutant's abilities? I mean, self-molecular manipulation allows for him to alter his physical form for starters. He's also a genius. Even before being modified by the celestial ship, Apocalypse was already living for thousands of years. All he has to do is drift into a gentle coma. Number one trick to getting your beauty sleep. A coma, that ought to do it. X-Men Age of Apocalypse from 1995, we see just how big and bad this guy can get. Oscar Isaac also had a swing at him in X-Men Apocalypse on the big screen, and I thought he was pretty scary, but when he gets big, it's just nightmare fuel. Check it out. And finally, number 1, Onslaught. Making his first debut in X-Men issue 15, Onslaught was a sentient psionic entity created by the minds of Charles Xavier and Magneto. What a combo! So when the X-Men were fighting the Acolytes, Wolverine hit Magneto, and then in turn, Magneto ripped the adamantium from Wolverine's bones, which I gotta say, I thought hangnails were bad. This sounds way worse. His healing factor had to work overtime, and Xavier was beyond upset, so he shut down Magneto's mind. He just made him completely catatonic. But during this moment, all of Magneto's lust for hate and violence leaked into Charles' consciousness, creating this new personality, Onslaught. Onslaught is pretty OP. He has the ability to tap into the psychic resources of the astral plane, where he can then manipulate matter and energy. Telepathy, telekinesis, electromagnetic manipulation, just a combo you don't want to face in any way.
Number 10, Karma. Karma is a mutant with very specific powers, so it should surprise no one that she is part of the New Mutants team. I actually love the New Mutants for this reason. A lot of their members tend to be forgotten and yet are super powerful when their abilities are properly utilized. Xian Koiman possesses limited telepathic abilities, but can have a strong sense of sort of psychic projection. Karma can emit a wave of energy that disables her target's consciousness, allowing her to take over control of their body, experiencing what they experience as though she were actually in their body, sensing what they taste, hear, smell, see, and feel. Those she controls will awaken unaware, afterwards experiencing this possession as if they had just been in a dream and basically had been sleepwalking. She can also do this on a mass scale, possessing multiple people, though she must overcome many challenges in order to fluidly control multiple people at once. Number 9, HIJACK. HIJACK is David Bond, a technopath mutant who can use his abilities to telepathically control any vehicle. He's used his powers to control massive sentinels and even control an entire helicarrier. The rule seems to be if you can steer it, fly it, or drive it, HIJACK can control it. Although it has been implied that the vehicle in question likely needs to have some kind of mechanical makeup, so sailboats are probably not something Bond could manipulate, unless you had a sailboat that also had an engine, which I think is a thing now. I don't think all sailboats are just sails. Still, in a world where we are surrounded by tech and tons of engine-powered vehicles, David Bond's abilities are pretty powerful. Alas, he has only appeared in less than 50 issues of comics. Someone tell me, where is David Bond now? Where is he on Krakoa? Is he there? I want to see him. Number 8, Summoner. Summoner is a new mutant whose name also signifies the type of mutant that they are. They are the child of Apocalypse's first horsemen of war. Arakko, the landmass itself, was drawn to Krakoa and Krakoa to it. The two fused together to increase the size of the land overall, although Arakko is not yet considered safe and is basically known as kind of the monster territory part of Krakoa. I mean, technically it still isn't Krakoa, but they're attached now, so they are each other. Summoner's abilities allow them to summon the dark beasts of Arakko. We don't know too much about them yet because they've only been in a few issues, but what we do know is that they can withstand the blast of one of Cable's thermal grenades, his last one in fact, without taking virtually any damage. So overall, they seem like they're going to be pretty crazy and powerful. X of Swords, I'm assuming we're going to see more about them. Number 7, Dust. Dust is Soraya Kadir. She was enslaved as a child but freed by the X-Men. Originally, she did not want to reveal herself to the mutants and hid herself by turning into scattered sand. When Jean Grey sensed her presence and encouraged Soraya to reveal and introduce herself, she did so by referring to herself as Turab, which is Arabic for dust. She can turn herself into dust and manipulate her body to move at high speeds, causing her to become a deadly sandstorm to her enemies. As sand particles, she can also enter the bodies of other people, causing internal damage. Dust is also resistant to magic and telepathic manipulation or detection while in her sand form. Dust is another person that I feel like we never see enough of in the comics. Someone bring back Dust. Number 6. Layla Miller. Layla's abilities, skills, and powers tend to be pretty specific, which means that she might not inherently seem powerful to readers. Layla has been shown to be able to reanimate beings, heal wounds, and appears to be immune to reality warping. She also has a lot of knowledge about her own future life and the events surrounding it, as she spent time in the future and then returned and uploaded all she had learned into her younger self when she returned to that Layla's present, which I guess was technically her past. Her vast knowledge often comes in handy and is what helped the mutants to figure out who was really after the baby mutant Messiah during the events of Messiah Complex. Her own knowledge has also technically helped her in gaining the knowledge that she has needed to have in order to gain it, if that makes any sense. Timey-wimey stuff. Number 5. Maxime and Manon. Maxime and Manon are twin siblings born to mutant parents. Their powers as such manifested when they were younger than most. They haven't been in a ton of comics, most about probably 11 issues, but they have been shown to be pretty deadly and powerful even as children, both in Extermination and recently in the newest run of New Mutants. Maxime can influence others' emotions, while Manon can alter someone's memories, or recall their memories past. When combined, their powers actually allow them to manipulate the minds of others to the point that they can easily control them, shaping their victims into whatever they'd like them to be and making them do whatever they want. In issues 3 and 4 of New Mutants, both Maxime and Manon were captured along with Armor, Glob, Angel Salvador, Beak, and the couple's children, but managed to escape. Manon and Maxime helped to free the rest of the group by distracting their captives, manipulating one of them into killing the other. Number 4. Mirage. You might not recognize her mutant name, but if you've seen the New Mutants film, or you are familiar with the New Mutants at all, Mirage will be someone that you maybe know. Mirage is actually Daniel Moonstar. Standard X-Men fans may be less familiar with Dani, but she has also been one of the X-Men, and she is known for her affiliation with the New Mutants crew and all the female defenders who are also known as Valkyrie. Dani herself became a Valkyrie when the New Mutants were kidnapped by Amora the Enchantress and taken to Asgard, so she doesn't just have her mutant power of illusion creation and telepathy, which originally she could only use to recreate the fear of others, but she also has some of the powers granted to Valkyries. Oh, and she can make cool psionic arrows too. Number 3. Strong Guy. Strong Guy has similar powers to another mutant we talked about on part 1 of this list. His abilities allow him to use kinetic energy to augment his strength, increasing it. However, he cannot hold the energy for long, as it could severely harm him, distort his physical form, or even kill him. Still, even with the rule that he must expel any absorbed energy within less than 2 minutes of absorption, he is pretty powerful, using his powers to safely lift up to around 100 tons. Strong Guy's real name is Guido Carosella, and he first appeared in the original New Mutants series in issue 29. Number 2. A mutant with no name. In the alternate reality belonging to the Ultimate Universe of 1610, we got a story that introduced us to a mutant who had no name. This mutant's powers were so devastating that we were not permitted the time to get to know him. His powers had only just manifested, but they were so deadly that they caused the deaths of over 200 people in his hometown, including his parents and his girlfriend at high school, with the deaths being almost instantaneous. But there was no snapping involved. It wasn't a Thanos thing. No Infinity Gauntlet. His mutant power was basically to kill everything around him, radiating toxins and poisons that basically vaporize organic tissue. He was so dangerous, powerful, and deadly that Wolverine was sent to eliminate him, as the young mutant's existence posed too much of a threat to the mutant image, as well as both humans and mutants alike, just in general. Number 1. Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy is one of the strongest, most random mutants who now belongs to the alternate timeline of Earth 14923, because he was just too powerful to basically continue to exist. Like many of the most epic mutants, he had reality warping powers and was additionally considered Omega level in terms of his ability. Matthew's powers unfortunately were often tied to his emotions, which proved problematic and often resulted in massively destructive outbursts of energy. In the end, Tempest traveled back in time and, with help from Professor X of the past, was able to prevent Matthew's parents from ever meeting, meaning that he was never born.